I hadn't planned on staying the night. It was supposed to be a quick drop-off, a favor, nothing more. But then she opened the door, and for a moment, I forgot why I was even there. She stood in soft lamplight, barefoot, wearing a loose cardigan that hung off one shoulder. Her hair was pulled back, but a few strands had escaped, framing her face in a way that didn't look accidental. Her name still sat on my tongue like a secret. "Come in," she said, her voice low, almost careful. I did. And the air between us shifted, the quiet kind of shift that only two people notice but pretend not to. The house smelled faintly of rain and coffee. Somewhere in the background, a record played, slow, crackling, old. I could hear it even when neither of us spoke. She moved across the room with an unhurried grace, the kind that made you wonder what her life had taught her to be gentle about. "You must be tired," she said, glancing back at me. "The guest room's down the hall." "It's not much, but—" Her sentence trailed off as she caught me looking, not at her face, but at the way her hand rested on the counter, fingers tracing the rim of a half-empty wine glass. I looked away too late. She noticed. I tried to make it sound casual. "Thanks. I didn't expect to be here this late." Her lips curved, not quite a smile. Neither did I. The silence that followed was too full. I wanted to say something, anything, to break it, but every word I thought of felt wrong. So I just watched her pour another glass, not offering it, not explaining it, and then sit at the edge of the couch. "Sit," she said softly. I did. The space between us was a single cushion, but it felt narrower than that. She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on her knees, eyes on the floor. I caught the smallest tremor in her breath before she spoke again. "You're easy to talk to," she said, still not looking at me. "I don't usually let people stay here." "Then why me?" I asked. That made her look up. Her eyes met mine, steady, unreadable. "Maybe because you don't ask the wrong questions." I didn't know what the right ones were, so I said nothing. Instead, I studied the way her thumb turned the glass, slow, deliberate. The record hissed. The rain outside softened into a hush. She exhaled, as if deciding something. "The guest room's at the end of the hall," she said again, this time quieter, heavier. I nodded and stood, but neither of us moved right away. When I finally did, my hand brushed hers, a mistake, maybe, but neither of us pulled away quickly enough. Her skin was warm, familiar in a way that shouldn't have been. "Good night," she murmured. I wanted to answer, but my throat tightened. Instead, I just looked at her, the faint sadness in her smile, the way her eyes lingered, as if asking a question she didn't dare voice. I turned toward the hallway, heart loud in my chest. Behind me, I heard the faint clink of her glass on the table. Then, her voice, softer than before. "You don't have to close the door." The record stopped. The house fell into silence. And somewhere between the living room and the guest room, I realized, maybe she didn't want me sleeping at all, that I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in that doorway again, the way her cardigan had slipped down her arm, the sound of her voice when she told me not to close the door. I'd left it half open, just like she said, and for hours I listened for her footsteps in the hall. They never came. In the morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds, painting thin gold lines across the room. I found her in the kitchen, hair damp from a shower, a mug in her hands. She looked surprised to see me awake. "Coffee?" she asked, her tone neutral, like last night hadn't happened. "Sure," I said. She poured, handed me the cup, her fingers brushing mine. The contact was brief but enough to pull the air tight again. She gestured toward the table. "You're up early." "So are you," I said. Her laugh came out soft but tired. "Habit. I used to wake up early for someone. Years ago." I didn't ask who, but the way her eyes drifted to the empty chair beside her said enough. We sat opposite each other, a faint silence between the clinks of spoons and the hum of the refrigerator. She stirred her coffee long after the sugar had dissolved. "Do you ever miss them?" I asked quietly. She looked up. Who? Whoever used to sit there. Her lips parted, then closed again. Finally, she said, Sometimes. But mostly I miss who I was back then. Something in the way she said it made me ache, not for her past, but for the way she seemed to still live there. I wanted to say something comforting, but all I managed was, You still seem like someone worth missing. She didn't respond right away. Just looked at me, really looked, and for a second, I saw a crack in her calm. Then she smiled, small and fleeting. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because you don't mean them yet. I didn't know how to explain that I did, that I'd meant every word since I first saw her open that door. But the way she looked at me, with that quiet authority, made me hold my tongue. Instead, I helped her clean up, rinsing cups while she dried them. Once, our hands met over a single plate, and neither of us moved. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from holding back. You're too young to understand what holding back costs, she said softly, not looking at me. Then teach me, I said before I could stop myself. Her breath caught, barely audible. Then she set the towel down and turned away. Don't say that. Why? Because I might. The air between us thickened, heavy with things unsaid. She didn't move until the sound of the kettle broke the silence. Then, slowly, she placed her hand on my shoulder, brief, almost motherly, but her thumb lingered just a second too long. You should get some rest, she whispered. You've got a long day ahead. But neither of us moved. And when she finally did, stepping back, eyes soft, voice barely steady, it wasn't distance I felt. It was gravity. By the third day, I'd learned her rhythms, how she hummed when she watered the plants, how she paused before answering a question, as if choosing her words carefully enough not to be misunderstood. But what I hadn't learned was how to stop looking at her. That evening, she was in the living room sorting through old mail, sleeves rolled up, hair falling loose from a clip. I sat on the arm of the couch, pretending to read something on my phone but watching her reflection in the glass of the window instead. Something wrong? She asked without looking up. No, I said too quickly. Just thinking. She smiled faintly. Dangerous habit. I opened my mouth to answer, but a phone buzzed on the table, hers. The name that flashed on the screen made her still. I didn't see all of it, just the beginning, Daniel. She let it ring out. Then, quietly, he used to call when he missed me. Now he calls when he remembers to. I didn't know what to say. The space between us suddenly felt sharper, filled with all the things she wasn't saying about that name. She slid the phone away, turned to me. Sorry. I didn't mean to, it's fine. I interrupted, standing without thinking. You don't owe me an explanation. Her eyes softened. That's what makes you dangerous. Before I could ask what she meant, she stepped closer, just enough that I could smell her perfume, faint and familiar. My heart was beating too fast. She looked up at me, lips parting slightly, as if she might say something, or do something, but then the doorbell rang. We both froze. She blinked, took a half step back, smoothing her hair. That'll be. The bell rang again. I moved before she could, peeking through the curtain. It's your neighbor, I think. Her hand came to rest on my arm. Don't. Too late. I opened the door. A middle-aged man stood there, holding a package and a polite smile. Hey, I saw your light on. Thought I'd drop this off before I forget. She appeared beside me, composed again, though her voice had a tremor. Oh, thank you, Tom. That's kind. He looked between us, his gaze flicking over the space, how close we stood, how I still held her arm without realizing. His smile faltered for half a second before he nodded and left. The door clicked shut, and silence returned, heavier than before. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. Her hand slid down my arm until her fingers brushed mine. You shouldn't have answered, she said quietly. I know. Her eyes lifted to mine, searching for something she didn't want to find. For a moment, the world outside felt far away, just the two of us, a half-closed door, and the faint echo of her name still in my head. She took a small breath, barely audible. If people saw this, they haven't, I said. Not yet. Her lips parted, her gaze flicking to my mouth before she caught herself. Don't, she whispered. But she didn't move. Her hand stayed against mine, a single point of contact, trembling with everything we weren't supposed to feel. When she finally turned away, it wasn't rejection. It was self-defense. And as she walked to the window, the reflection in the glass showed us both, too close, too aware, too far past pretending. It rained that night, a quiet, unhurried kind of rain that made everything else sound distant. She was in the kitchen when I came downstairs, lights dim, sleeves pushed up again, washing dishes she'd already cleaned. You're still awake, I said. She didn't turn. Couldn't sleep. I moved closer, leaning against the counter. You've been avoiding me. That made her pause. The water kept running, but her hands stopped moving. Maybe I've been avoiding myself. The words hung between us, damp and fragile. She turned off the tap, finally facing me. Her hair was a little messy, eyes tired, lips parted as if she'd been rehearsing something in her head all day. You make it hard to think, she said quietly. I thought I was being careful. You're not. Her voice trembled just enough to break the calm. You look at me like you shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't, I admitted. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until I could feel the warmth from her skin, smell the faint trace of her perfume and rain. I'm not who you think I am, she said, almost a whisper. I've made mistakes. So have I said. Maybe that's why I see you the way I do. Her breath hitched, and for the first time, she looked scared, not of me, but of herself. Don't say that, she whispered. You'll make it real. Her hand came up as if to stop me from speaking again, but I caught it midair. Her fingers trembled inside mine, cool, soft, unwilling to pull away. Then tell me to go, I said. Tell me to forget you. She didn't. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up, and I felt her breath against my chin when she finally spoke. I can't. The words hit harder than I expected, not a confession, but surrender. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, and she closed her eyes at the touch. The world shrank to that moment, the hum of rain against the window, the faint tick of the clock, the rise and fall of her breath beneath my hand. I've thought about this, I murmured. Her eyes opened, wide and searching. And then what? I don't know. She leaned forward just enough that our foreheads touched. The closeness felt like a question neither of us wanted to answer. Her hands found my chest, resting there lightly, not to push me away, but to feel the heartbeat she just caused. This can't happen, she whispered, voice unsteady. Then why are you shaking? Her laugh came out soft, broken. Because I wanted to. The room felt too small, the air too thick. Every breath carried the weight of something that couldn't be taken back. Her lips parted, just a fraction, and I knew if either of us moved an inch, it would happen. Then a sound. A sharp knock on the door. We both froze, our breaths caught between us. She closed her eyes, her forehead still resting against mine. Don't move, she whispered. But it was already too late. The moment had happened, not the kiss, but everything leading up to it. And we both knew nothing would be the same after this. The morning after the knock, the house felt different, quieter, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that followed something broken, even if no one had said the words out loud. She avoided me again, moving through rooms like she was trying not to disturb the air. I stayed out of her way, though every time our paths nearly crossed, I caught her glancing up, as if to check whether I was still there, or if she'd only imagined the night before. By afternoon, I found her in the study. She was sitting by the window, phone in hand, staring at the same name on the screen. Daniel. Again. You can answer, I said quietly. She startled, didn't turn around. I don't want to. Then why are you still holding it? Her fingers tightened around the phone before she finally spoke. Because he's not supposed to know you're here. That made me stop. He? You mean my ex-husband? She said, standing too quickly. He still thinks I live alone. That I keep my distance. Her voice cracked on that last part. I didn't know what to do with the sudden sharpness in the air. You lied to him? I didn't lie, she said, but the way she said it sounded like she wished it were true. I just didn't tell him. And now he wants to come by this week to pick up the last of his things. Does he know about me? No, she said, turning toward me, eyes fierce. And he can't. The words landed like a wall between us. I took a step closer. So what am I supposed to be when he shows up? A stranger? A mistake you forgot to hide? Her jaw tightened. You don't understand. Then make me. I said, the word sharper than I meant. Because right now, I feel like you're trying to erase me before I'm even gone. She flinched, not from the words, but from what they made her feel. Do you think this is easy for me? She whispered. I wake up and can't decide whether I want you gone or closer. You think I planned this? That I wanted. She stopped herself, breathing unsteady. Wanted what? I asked. Her eyes met mine, full of everything she'd refused to say. You, she whispered. I wanted you. The words tore through the room like thunder. Before I could react, she brushed past me, her shoulder grazing my arm, the heat of her skin setting mine on fire. She stopped by the door, one hand gripping the frame as if to steady herself. I shouldn't have said that, she muttered. But when she turned back, her eyes told the truth her mouth couldn't take back. I stepped toward her, slow, measured, my pulse loud in my ears. You already did. For a moment neither of us breathed. Her hand hovered on the doorknob, trembling. He'll be here Friday, she said softly. What happens before then? She hesitated, 1 second, 2, then finally looked at me. Whatever shouldn't. And with that, she left the room, leaving the air thick with confession, guilt, and the knowledge that we'd just run out of time. The night before Friday, the house wouldn't stay still. Rain again, harder this time, drumming against the roof like a warning neither of us could ignore. She was in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch, staring at a half-finished glass of wine she hadn't touched. I stood in the doorway, watching her. She didn't look up when she spoke. He called again. I said nothing. He's coming early. Tomorrow morning. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. I crossed the room and sat across from her. The air felt electric, sharp with things unsaid, the same current that had followed us since the first night. So this is goodbye, I said quietly. She laughed once, without humor. You make it sound simple. Isn't it? She looked at me then, really looked. No. Because I don't know how to want something and let it go in the same breath. The words caught something in my chest. Then don't. She shook her head, standing, pacing toward the window. You don't understand what this would cost me. What people would say. I'm not people. That's exactly why it matters. She turned, eyes bright with something close to anger, but not at me. You're young. You'll move on. You'll find someone who isn't. She trailed off, searching for a word she couldn't bear to say. Isn't you? I finished for her. Her breath hitched. Exactly. I stood, closing the space between us until I could see the rain reflected in her eyes. You think this is about age? About right or wrong? I can't stop thinking about you. I tried. God, I tried. She didn't move when I reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. My hand lingered, fingertips brushing her skin. Her breath came shallow, uneven. You shouldn't, she whispered. I know. Her eyes fluttered closed. Then why? Because you keep looking at me like this, I said, my voice barely a murmur. Like you want me to stop, but you don't mean it. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The space between us pulsed, one heartbeat too. The air thickened, warm and trembling. When she finally spoke, her voice broke. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't. Her hands found my chest, not to push me away this time, but to hold on. She stepped closer, the distance collapsing until there was nowhere left to hide. We stood there, motionless, our foreheads almost touching, breaths tangled. "If we do this," she whispered, "everything changes." "It already has." She let out a shaky breath, half a sigh, half surrender. Her fingers traced the collar of my shirt, hesitating. "I can't promise anything. I'm not asking for promises." Just silence, rain, and the sound of two people realizing they'd already crossed the line. Then, a single moment. Her hand rising to my face, her thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. The smallest, most dangerous touch. Neither of us moved away. We didn't need to. The decision had already been made. And in the quiet, I understood, not all choices are spoken. Some are simply lived. Morning came softly, pale light through thin curtains, the kind that makes everything feel quieter than it should. The rain had stopped some time before dawn, leaving the air damp and still. She was sitting on the back porch when I found her, wrapped in a blanket, hands around a cup of coffee. Her hair was still messy, eyes a little tired, but she looked peaceful, like the storm had taken something heavy with it. For a moment I just watched her. The woman who had spent days holding herself together now looked like someone who didn't need to anymore. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, sensing me before I spoke. "Didn't try," I said. She smiled faintly, eyes still on the garden. "He came early. Picked up the boxes and left. Didn't even come inside." I sat beside her. The wood was cold, the morning air sharp enough to sting. "Does he know?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "And it doesn't matter anymore." We were quiet for a while, listening to the birds, the sound of wet leaves dripping onto the patio. When she finally looked at me, her expression had softened. "You should hate me a little," she said gently. "For how I pushed you away. For how I made you stay." "I don't," I said. "If anything, I'm scared of how much I don't." Her hand twitched, a small, uncertain movement, before she let it rest over mine. Her fingers were cool, but they fit perfectly. "You make everything sound simple," she whispered. "It is," I said. "We're here. We both know what this is." She turned to me fully then, searching my face, like she needed to make sure I meant it. "And what is it?" "Something real," I said. "Even if it doesn't fit anywhere else." Her eyes softened. "You're too young to know what real means." "Maybe," I said, "but I know when something feels alive." That made her laugh, quiet, shaky, but real. She leaned back, exhaling, her head finding my shoulder without hesitation. I felt her relax, all that tension melting into the small space between us. "Do you regret it?" I asked. She thought for a long time. Then, "No. I regret waiting so long to stop pretending I didn't." I turned slightly, my arm finding its way around her. Her blanket slipped a little, and she didn't fix it. The world outside the porch was still waking up, soft light brushing against the trees, mist curling off the grass. It felt like a beginning, quiet, undeserved, but ours. Her hand found mine again, fingers intertwining this time, no hesitation. "Stay," she said simply. I didn't answer, I didn't need to. Instead, I pressed my lips to her forehead, slow, certain, and felt her hand tighten around mine. For once, neither of us pulled away. The world kept moving, but we didn't. We just stayed there, together, where we weren't supposed to be, but exactly where we both wanted to.